All right, so we're just beginning to record this session, and now we're about talking about risk. So I've heard a lot of people say risk is big on the exam. So you got to identify what is happening every step of the way. Do notice that five of the seven are from planning. Did you notice that? Five are from planning, one is from executing, and one from monitoring and controlling. So your steps in planning risk are fivefold. One, you got to plan how we're going to manage risk in the first place. What is too much? What is too little? What is the right thing? And this is all in your risk management plan. And then you need to identify the risks, and we put that into a risk register. At the same time, we begin creating a risk report. So your risk report catalogs those high, big ticket risks that people need to focus on. Think of it like a summary report, the State of the Union address for risk, if you will, on the project. And then you keep updating the risk register and the risk report all throughout. There's nothing new in addition to the risk register, risk report, risk management plan, which is one of the things that makes the outputs here easy. But as far as the minutia, as far as what you're doing, you got to understand that in identify risk, you're looking for the risks and also the cause and the effect of the risk. When you take a look at qualitative, you're not looking at the monetary impact, you're just looking at high, medium, low, or is it yellow, green, red, that kind of qualitative stuff. But when you get into quantitative, now we're talking about dollars. In fact, most of PMI's questions is about the monetary aspect, right? So dollars. You could also look at resource hours, but it's typically not about that. Most times PMI would just go into the talk about dollars, whatever the currency is. When you have done your quantitative, let me explain what your quantitative does. So your qualitative gives you a first ranking of the risks, those that are to the top of the register that have a high probability and impact. You then take those and you analyze them more to look for what the monetary impact would be. And those that have a high monetary impact and high probability, well, of course, you need to develop strategies for those, first of all, right? There's some you're going to accept. There's some that you can't do anything about them, like acts of God. You can't really do much about that. Sometimes you can, but other times you can't. So whatever you can do about these risks, you want to put them still in what we call a risk response plan, which, by the way, is in many companies the same as a risk register. So your risk register is really where all of these things are housed: the cause, the risk, the effect, probability rating, impact rating, probability in percent, impact in dollars, so on and so forth. And then some companies, they do the fancy stuff with the Monte Carlo in quantitative, but you will not be tested on Monte Carlos and running them on the exam. What you are going to be tested on is, do you know what this process is about? Do you know what you do after quantitative? Well, it's planning risk responses. Do you know the five strategies? We talked about this in our immersion yesterday, and we've talked about this in classes that you folks have attended. So you got to know your five strategies for positive risks or opportunities, five for negative risks or threats. And then you got to implement those strategies. Some of the strategies, like I said, will be accept, passive accept, some would be active accept. But the bottom line is you implement that strategy and then you keep your eye on it. So you got to be familiar with terminology like the watch list. You got to be familiar with risk triggers, residual risks, secondary risks, business risks. All of this should be terminology you have at your fingertips. Business risk could be positive or negative, residual risk, risk that remain, that kind of stuff. All right. And what else? And then the monitoring of the risks, monitoring the risk on the watch list, making sure that they haven't changed. If they have changed, making sure that you update the register and taking into account whatever else anyone has discovered. So if you get a question about new risks, where are they discovered, you look for new risks in the monitor risks process. So this is, in my mind, the second most important topic after integration and change management, which is big. Risk management and issue management is next. So issue management is not really talked about as a separate area, but a risk that is realized is an issue. And you do know that issue should be tracked in an issue log. So an issue is something that is happening right now. If a risk is already documented in the risk register, then you just keep tracking it, and all of the documentation keeps being updated in the risk register. There's no need for you to move it. You just keep tracking it, because if you've implemented the response, then you want to track if it was effective or not. So there's no need for you to track it in two places. Just track, okay, the risk happened, we couldn't get a handle on it, or we did, and all of that stuff becomes part of your lessons learned. Now, as far as issues, there's some things that are just happening right now. You didn't see them coming. Those are the things that we would say are issues that need to be tracked. If you thought you saw anything coming, it's going to be in the risk register. If you didn't see something coming and it suddenly happens, then that becomes an issue for you to track. And the way to deal with issues is change requests. And there are 4 types of change requests you could have: corrective action, preventive action, defect repair, or updates. And all of these, you need to be familiar with them. They're all in 4.3 in direct to manage project work. As an output, you get change request. All right. So honestly, if I was going to fine tune your focus for the PMP exam, integration, you got to get integration down. You got to get risk down. You got to be familiar with issues. Also, of course, impediments, we call impediments issues as well. So, oh, you're welcome. You got to be familiar with that. And then in closing, I really just want to reiterate the whole concept of change requests, because I also have that in here somewhere. Change request, there we go, that one. You got to get familiar with what happens when a change comes in. There are many ways you could process a change request, but ultimately it's going to be approved, rejected, put on hold, or pending. So if you're familiar with steps 1 through 10, you're good for your exam. Okay, so today we've talked about integration, scope, we talked about risk, we've taken a look at change requests. The other big thing for your exam that you're going to get situational questions on is stakeholder. So stakeholder management, final one. So these are the 4 things in stakeholder: the identification of stakeholders and the stakeholder register. Really read the stakeholder register and know the difference between the stakeholder register and other registers, okay? Then read the difference between the stakeholder engagement plan versus the stakeholder register. Those 2 are different. You got to know how they're different by really reading the definitions. And then the communications management plan is different from the stakeholder engagement plan in that the stakeholder engagement plan's purpose is to engage. The communications management plan is to distribute and share information as promised. Now, both of these plans could be used in different situations. If you're talking about knowing who to communicate with, when, where, why, how, it's your communications management plan. But if you're looking to understand how to engage a stakeholder, which could include some communication tactics, it's going to be in your stakeholder engagement plan. All right. So we're almost out of time, but let me take any questions about what we spoke about today. I will try and do this again. Not sure if I'm going to be able to do this tomorrow, but if I am, I will send out a meeting notice before, well in advance, maybe later on tonight. It might be earlier in the day, so just keep that in mind. But I would like to answer any questions real quick before we hop off the call. Any questions or concerns? Okay, if there are no questions or concerns, can I ask you some questions? Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions. So let me ask you just 10 quick questions. We'll spend about 1 minute or less for each one. Oh, I've shown you the answer to that one, but let's just move on. So this was, you were hired as a PM on a new project. Management wants frequent delivery. Which one would you use? So there's A, B, and C. So what I want you to do when I launch the poll is just choose A, B, or C. Option D, don't choose option D today because it's only A, B, and C. All right, so let me launch it. Let's see if you were paying attention to when I showed the answer, because I already showed the answer in error. Did everyone catch when I showed the answer? Those who were looking did. Oops, let's cancel that. So the flashcards, they are here. Let me see if I can send them again. Let me open up my folder and put it in the chat again. And let's end the poll. And let's share the results. All right. So this is a common error. A lot of people think that frequent delivery means iterative. It does not. So if you go to page 19 in the Agile Practice Guide, what you're going to find is iterative means doing things in cycles, but that doesn't mean delivering in cycles. There's a difference between doing in cycles versus delivering in cycles. So if you are delivering in cycles, you want to choose the adaptive. Adaptive means agile, by the way. So adaptive is change driven. Iterative only delivers one time. Did you know that? Look at page 19. In that table, page 19 or 18, whichever one, the table in the Agile Practice Guide, it shows you that iterative is a one-time delivery. So this page 18. So if you haven't taken note that iterative is a one-time delivery, this is a good learning moment. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, I asked that you mute individually. Let's go ahead and let's launch the poll for the next one. Here we go. All right, what do you think the answer to this one is? All right. Thank you very much. Let's end it. 3, 2, and 1. These are very, very quick. Let's end the poll. Let's share the results. So here's the trick. The trick to this is I was looking for you to read an official requests a customary fee you were anticipating. You're anticipating it. So when do you use management reserves? You use management reserves when you are faced with unknowns. So it's not an unknown, so you don't need to use management reserves for that, right? And then cost of delay is just bogus. That doesn't even mean anything. Cost of delay is a delay, the cost of delaying features. So that, no, nothing. The right answer is contingency reserves, because contingencies are for things that you saw coming and you put aside a little bit of money or whatever it is to deal with that thing. So it's not management reserves. That's for unknowns. All right. So look out for little tricks like you were anticipating. That already shows that you saw it coming, which would make it at worst a risk. All right, not an unknown. All right, so the answer is B. All right, next one. The increment was produced by the team. What should happen next? Let's go ahead and launch. Let's launch the poll. All right. Good job. These are easy and quick. 3, 2, and 1. I also want you to get used to answering the questions super fast, because on the exam, this is like peanuts. The exam will give you like a whole tree for you to shake, right? This is nothing compared to some of the questions on the exam. So if you can answer these in like 20 seconds, 10 seconds, that's better, because your exam could have like 3 times this. All right, let's end the poll. And if you need additional time, maybe like you have been diagnosed with ADHD, ADD, that kind of stuff, then you can actually approach PMI and you can ask them for more time, and they're usually gracious to give it to you if you've got a doctor's note or something like that. All right, so the answer to that, you got it. It's demo. It's demo. Demo is the answer. All right, here's the next one. Project charter was developed. What should the project manager do next? Let me relaunch the poll. Okay. All right. 3, 2, and 1. Well done. All right. So think about it. The charter was developed. What should you do next? Well, if the charter is developed, you actually do need to get some work done before you begin monitoring risks, right? You do need to develop a risk management plan and then identify risks and do all that. But since that is not there, the closest is to execute the work. So executing the work is what you would do next because that's in the executing process group. So the answer would be A. Monitoring risk will come later as you've started executing the work, as you've developed the plan and so on, then you would get to monitor risk. So in the order of things that need to be done, the best thing is A. Okay, it wouldn't be a final product transition. That would be too early. All right, here's the next one. Let's launch the poll. A stakeholder register was created. What should the project manager do next? Well done. All right. 3, 2, and 1. All right, let's share the results. So here's the logic. Again, in which process group is stakeholder register created? Can anyone tell us?
Initiating.
Thank you. It's an initiating. So if that's an initiating, then you would expect to see something in planning, but we don't see anything in planning. The next two after A are in monitoring and controlling. So customer validation of products is like validate scope. It's not that. And then work performance reporting, you need to get some work done before you begin reporting on work performance. So the best answer is A. All right. I hope this logic is making sense because this is what people are saying the exam has and is throwing people off. So you got to get familiar with this stuff. All right. Here's the next one. Requirements have been collected and the process complete. What should happen next? Let's go ahead and relaunch. All right. What do you think? All right. 3, 2, and 1. Let's end the poll and let's share the results. So majority of us got this one wrong, unfortunately. Let's read the question real carefully. It says, the requirements have been collected. Boom. Why are you bothering with anything to do with requirements? They have been collected. Whether they've been collected in a requirements traceability matrix or something else, it says, and the process complete. It's complete. You don't have to do anything with a requirements traceability matrix because that's what you did. Get it? That's what you did. It
Well,
said,
for that, sorry to cut you off. For that question there, I did choose create requirement matrix because I'm thinking output. It's been completed, but I'm thinking output.
no, that's what completes the process. The output completes the process. The process is not complete until you've got the output. The dinner is not cooked until you've got the output from the oven. That's the way to think. So you got to beware. I think this is one of the things PMI tricks people up on a lot. They'll give you the option of what you're doing, and people fall into the trap of thinking that's what to do next. No, you've done it. I even went a step further to say, and the process complete. It's done because I knew, okay, maybe it's a little bit unfair. Let me give some additional insight. So you got to look out for PMI. They do this a lot. The requirements traceability matrix already done. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you gotta kind of sniff them out. So it's not A, and it's also not C, because C, create a team performance assessment, doesn't even make a sense. That would B, I sent the team for training and then I'm assessing how well they went for training. This has nothing to do with what we're looking at here. But what has to do with the question is this. Does anyone know where we perform a product analysis? Which process?
Control scope?
It's something about scope. It's defined scope. So this is where you need to go through the glossary with a fine-tooth comb. So PMPs, please make sure you go through your glossary in PMBOK 6. And then in that way, nothing will trick you, because you'll be like, oh, I remember what product analysis is. It says on page 715, for projects that have a product as a deliverable, it is a tool to define scope. That generally means asking questions about a product and forming answers to describe the use, characteristics, and other relevant aspects of what is going to be manufactured. So if we're going to manufacture an iPad, we would take a look at the iPad 360. We would ask the question, okay, should it have rounded edges? Oh, that means some CAD design, some superior machining. What kind of metal is it going to have? Okay, Steve Jobs wanted a gunmetal finish. He also wanted Gorilla Glass. So we need to go out somewhere in Asia and find people who can do that for cheap, such and such. So you look at the product 360, and based on the analysis, you know the scope. You got to do the analysis to know the scope. So Steve Jobs, he said, I want a gunmetal finish. Well, what's the scope in getting a gunmetal finish? Gunmetal finish doesn't come by easy. What about Gorilla Glass? It took him a trip to go figure that out. So whatever you're trying to do with a product, you got to analyze it. Analyze the characteristics, the features, the ergonomics, the materials. And then when you do that, you have a better idea of the scope. So like I always say, the requirements beget the scope. So if the requirements say, I want gunmetal finish, I want Gorilla Glass, I want rounded edges, I want this, that, then it's going to add some scope. And that's what defined scope does. All right. So my advice to you would be to read all of those tools, techniques that just appear in the glossary. And I keep telling you, if there's any that throws you off, send me an email. Carice is really good at sending questions. She sent me a great question today about technical debt. That's the engagement I need. I need you to send me your questions. There's something that's stumping you. I need you to send it to me. All right. And like one of the videos I'm about to put out this evening is from a student, and you'd be surprised how many people have that same question. All right. So if you're ever stumped on a definition and it doesn't make sense even after you read the PMBOK guide, please let me know. All right. You folks have done really well. We are almost done. We got 3 more to do. And then I'll open up one more time if there are any questions. Let's go to our next one. All right, you were hired as PM on a new project. Management wants frequent delivery. Oh, this is that same one. All right, let's relaunch. Let's relaunch. Let's go. All right. Yeah, Devin, how you doing? Good to see you. All right, Devin, email me at phil@praizion.com, and everyone else, you can always get me at that. Remember, it's a partnership. I need you. I need you to do this thing. So whenever you're stuck, please let me know immediately. All right. It seems like we've learned our lesson. Well done. I see some correct answers coming in. Good. All right. 3, 2, and 1. Let's end it. And let's see what we all chose. Yeah, you folks did well. So majority of you chose the right answer. I would go with the audience, hybrid. The reason why it's not iterative again is if you look at page 18, like I said a few moments ago in the Agile Practice Guide, iterative lifecycle does not deliver frequently, it delivers one time. Predictive lifecycle delivers one time. So your best option here is hybrid, where it's going to make some of Agile and some of predictive likely to deliver frequently, more frequently than any of the other options. Okay. All right. Let's go to our next one. The risk register was developed. What should come next? And note that some of the options, they don't even have a process name. And that's how the real exam is. They're not going to give you process names. They're probably going to describe something. Okay. You're welcome. All right. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, let's end the poll. So this one again is not in favor of the audience. The audience is not right on this one. So let's take a look. The risk register was developed. In which process do we develop the risk register?
Yep.
Planning,
Identify.
risk register, planning,
In the planning process group, or which specific process?
Identify.
Identify risk. So which one of these is redundant? Which one of these options is redundant?
Plan how to manage the risks.
So planning how to manage the risk is redundant, means it's already been done. Which one of these has already been done?
The C.
Exactly. Identify possible uncertainty. This is really explaining identify risks. It's explaining identify negative risks. And you do know that identifying risk could also have positive risks. It's not just negative. But in this case, it says identifying possible uncertainty. That's already been done. That's what this is. This is really the same as this. So developing the risk register means you've identified the uncertain events, positive or negative, right? All right. So after you've identified the risk, what comes immediately after? Perform qualitative. That's not here. What comes next after that?
Quantitative.
Quantitative. So that's the answer. This comes after quantitative. And that's how you need to tackle these questions when you see them on the exam, because they're going to dress up the process in some language. They're not going to use PMBOK 6th edition language for the most part. They might in maybe a few, but for the most part, they're going to describe what you're doing and say, what should you do next? So you got to know the flow. This is what a lot of people are talking about on social media, which is why for today's quiz, I made it very process heavy. You got to know your processes. Just as a reminder, I'm going into broken record mode now, but I've said it before. Do you folks have the cheat sheet with all of the explanations for processes in simple language?
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to send you Phil's cheat sheet again. So let me put the link in the chat. Here we go. Good. There's the link. All right. And let me remind you what it looks like. So it's very helpful because if you're struggling with page 25, this simplifies it. So if we zoom in and go to risk down here, it says plan how to manage risk, identify the risk, what could go wrong or right. That's identify risk, analyze the risk qualitatively, stuff like that. Okay. So if you're struggling with the processes, this is a nice, intro to the processes. So the right answer should have been quantitative. Okay, I think we got 2 more after this, maybe 1 more, I'll see. The scope baseline has been developed. What should happen next? Okay, beware of the redundant option. In other words, the one that's already been done. Okay, well done. All right, 3, 2, and 1. Let's go ahead and end it and share the results. Oh, it's a draw. So who remembers what is in the WBS? I'm sorry,
Scope.
who remembers what is in the scope baseline? Sorry. What is in the scope baseline?
Scope statement.
Good. The scope statement. So look at what it says. The scope baseline has been developed. And it's saying what should happen next. So if you said the scope statement is part of the scope baseline, then that can't be the answer, right? And then it says the scope baseline has been developed. In which process do we develop, do we create the scope baseline?
Create WBS.
Exactly, we do it in create WBS, so it can't be that. Creating the WBS will give you the scope baseline, and you should have already created the scope statement before getting to create WBS. So the answer has to be budgeting, because everything by process of elimination, this stuff has already been done before. Okay. All right. I think this is a final one. Final one. All right. The detailed budget has been determined. What should happen next? Let's relaunch this. Relaunch. All right. Final one. Okay. There's only ABC. All right. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, let's end the poll and let's share the results. So think about it. What is the first thing you do in cost management? Can anyone tell us? What's the first thing you do in cost?
Answer A.
Yeah, so if A is the first thing you do, then this thing that's saying the detailed budget has been determined, well, that has to happen after A. So if it's asking what should happen next, it can't be A because A is already done. It's already done. Plan how to manage the cost, that's already done as part of plan cost management. So we're left with 2 options. So let's take a look at option C. Do a definitive estimate. What comes first, an estimate or a budget?
Estimate.
An estimate. So if it's saying we've done the detailed budget, which process is it saying that we have done? Does anyone know
Determine budget.
Thank you. You know these so. How do you get to know these so well, Cynthia? Share the secret. What have you been doing?
Watching your video.
Wow, good job. So determine budget is what this describes. So it cannot be C because this should have come before determine budget. You get the logic? This is why you got to know the processes. So the only thing that happens after determine budget is control cost. And that's where we get cost forecast. The forecasts are a projection of what the end or the future of the project would be. So I think we've uncovered a lot of gaps today, my friends. We should probably do this again. I may just have to do this a little bit earlier tomorrow, but I will look into my schedule and you will get a notification like some of you got today. Okay, so I hope you found some gaps, but before we go, are there any additional concerns, questions? You know, I was supposed to have ended this about 20 minutes ago, but I feel that some of us need this. I want to make sure I answer all your questions. Any concerns or questions, comments?
Hey, Phil, is this kind of how you always set up your video conferencing? You just set up something for the future and then you email everybody, and if people want to attend, then they can. And now that we're
exactly.
in your circle, then we can.
Exactly. So these are kind of auxiliary sessions, and I hold them when I'm not on the road or when I have the availability. So today I decided to take the opportunity since I didn't have travel or anything planned. Tomorrow, I'm not 100% sure, but at this rate, I do want to do it no matter what, but I'm not sure exactly what time. Worst case scenario, it might be a couple of hours earlier than it is today, but you'll get a notification and you'll know. All right, so you can just plan anywhere between 6 and 8 Eastern for it to start. anywhere between 6 and 8 Eastern. So I'll send the email later tonight when I'm sure my schedule. I will go from there. But are there any questions before we jump off the call? Did everyone study anything today? Some people are like, no, Phil, this is the studying I'm doing today. This is it. Anyone
Yeah,
study?
no, yeah, absolutely. Of course, I went over the 91 exam questions and the questions that I missed. I went over those and also read the, I think you said read between, I think pages 9 through 33.
Good. Yeah.
So that's pretty much what I did today.
Awesome.
I listened to your podcast a lot today on my walk.
Oh, good. Very good, Jonathan.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact one, but there's like a specific one for each knowledge area.
That's true. Yeah.
I listened to the ones that I'm struggling in first in this, which was stakeholder and procurement.
Good plan. Good. Oh, well, very good, Devin. I'm glad you were able to jump on that. Why don't everyone that has not already done it, just subscribe to pmradio.org. And then when you get to pmradio.org, you might be able to see the app you've got for podcast. Just jump on there and just follow, like Jonathan's saying. I put so much content out there. I think it's got 177 episodes right now. So yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff on there and it's all free. So please go check it out. When you are away from home and you don't have your study stuff, you can just go to pmradio.org, or if you've got the app, just subscribe on the Apple app or Spotify. I think Jonathan found it on Spotify, and it's also on Amazon Music or Amazon Podcast. It's all over the place. So, yeah. All right, come on now. Questions or concerns or gray areas or processes or ITTOs or things you've heard you want to validate. Come on now. Burning questions?
Nope, just checking.
Good.
I got it. Processes is what I need to hit.
Yeah. Know the processes and know the flow. Just do it. Just do it anyway. I was trying to discourage people from doing it like 4 or 5 months ago, but as people began reporting back from the battlefield, how it had been, I realized this is knowledge ammo. Yeah, I need to load up the knowledge ammo. All right, Cicely, so you said, just finished my PMP, success alignment, good. So you do know, so Cicely, I'm gonna pull you into some possible Wednesdays, and on Saturday, you're gonna meet again friends who are going through this program on Saturday. So just stay tuned. Did you send me your phone number? Did you send, I think you sent me your phone number, yeah. So maybe I'll give you a call when I'm able to at some point, yeah. But just be aware, on Wednesday, I'm probably gonna pull you in to another training session, okay? Because it is part of the masterclass. All right, okay, my friends. Well, it's been lovely seeing you this evening. Be on the lookout for another email later tonight, and send me your burning questions, send me your concerns, and we'll be able to jump on board. And Kelvin, send me your phone number, Kelvin. Let me follow up with you as well. Diana, send me your phone number as well. Let me follow up with you. Esther, good to see you. I didn't see you when you snuck in. Okay. And Chandra, good to see you. So Chandra, one quick second. Let me go ahead and stop the recording.